Milarepa described the way of practicing the union of Samatha and Vipassana in his songs, particularly in the song to Nyima Paldar Bum. Paldar Bum had great faith and was skilled in her Dharma practice. She had both great virtuous roots and great faith. With these two qualities, she could attain enlightenment. Some people have sufficient faith but lack virtuous roots. Others have excellent virtuous roots but insufficient faith. She was also good at asking sharp and intelligent questions. Milarepa met her on one occasion while giving teachings to a lot of people. She felt great faith in Milarepa and invited him to her home. She told him that she was living in samsara. Paldar Bum was a she. I address this because this phenomenon does exist. Female practitioners generally have better faith in the teacher. There is a reason for this, as women tend to have stronger intuition. Men often have stronger logical and analytical abilities, but weaker intuition, which makes it harder for them to generate faith. They tend to analyze. However, when one analyzes a teacher's state of realization, it becomes difficult to develop faith. If men had women's intuitive capacity, they would arouse faith more easily. This quality is not inherently related to gender. I don't mean that female practitioners develop faith in male teachers more easily. Some male practitioners also have excellent intuition and can generate faith in their teachers effortlessly. How did I develop faith in my teacher? At that time, I had no great supernatural powers and did not know the teacher well. As a physics student, could I use physics to measure the teacher's level of enlightenment? Enlightenment cannot be weighed or measured, right? In such circumstances, how does one develop faith? It relies on feeling, which in turn depends on one's past cultivation and realization. Women's intuition is often stronger than men's, though some men with sharp spiritual faculties also have good intuition. In terms of building faith, women generally surpass men. However, women's karmic obstacles are often heavier. What a pity. If men have women's faith and women have men's resolve, both will progress quickly. Hence, men and women each have their own strengths. As practitioners, if we learn from each other's strengths to counteract our weaknesses, we will progress swiftly. Men should learn from women's faith, and women should learn from men's analytical ability and resolve. It is possible to cultivate these qualities. The disciple told Milarepa that she was living in samsara. During the day, she was busy preparing food and clothing. In the evening, she slept. But she wanted to practice the Dharma and asked Milarepa what practice she could do that would lead her to Buddhahood. Milarepa then sang a spiritual song to her, using multiple metaphors and examples. When I was young, my teacher told me the story of Milarepa leaving his homeland, having his house destroyed, and later returning to see it in ruins. I heard the song in which Milarepa described his ruined house as a lion's upper jaw, and a neighbouring house as resembling a donkey's ears. As a child, I thought this was just a metaphor. Later, when I returned to Tibet and saw all the ruined buildings, I thought, this really looks like a lion's jaw, and that like a donkey's ears, with parts of the buildings fallen and pieces sticking up. Milarepa's metaphor perfectly described what the ruins looked like. Returning to our story, Milarepa gave Paldar Bum, this female disciple, a teaching in a song using 4 metaphors or symbols. First, he said to her, "Look at the sky. The sky has no centre that you can point to, nor can you determine where its edge is. In the same way, rest in your mind without a centre or limit." Second, he said, "Look at the mountain. It is completely stable and unmoving. In that way, your mind should be firm and steady. Our mind should be as stable as a mountain. Do not tremble at a mere picture or become stirred over a trivial matter. I encourage you to often look at the mountains and contemplate. Since the mountains do not move, I too must keep my mind unmoving. When thunder rumbles, rain falls, wind blows, and dark clouds gather, do the mountains move? No, they don't move at all." Third, he said, "Look at the sun and moon. They don't fluctuate in brightness. They stay completely clear with the same intensity all the time. In the same way, your mind's clarity should not fluctuate. Our mind should be like this. Even when dark clouds appear, the sun and moon remain clear and bright." As practitioners, we should follow this example and act accordingly. Do not be swayed by others' words. We can visualize our mind as the sun and moon, bright, unwavering, and illuminating everywhere. Visualize our mind as like the sky, the sun, and the moon. Fourth, he said, "Look at a great lake that is completely calm and still, without waves. In the same way, your mind should be calm and still." Milarepa did not mean that we should literally meditate on a mountain, sun, lake, or the sky. These are metaphors for the non-conceptual meditation we should cultivate. Then Milarepa told Paldar Bum to meditate without concepts, which is the Samatha aspect. Looking at the essence of the absence of thoughts is the Vipassana aspect. So, he instructed her to meditate in the union of Samatha and Vipassana by meditating without thoughts. This is the 5th instruction in this song. Many people misunderstand this instruction, thinking this method can lead to the state of Samatha and Vipassana by meditating without thoughts. Many individuals practice in this way and consequently stray from the authentic path. It is essential to apply correct mental modes because our minds are clouded by numerous afflictions. The mind is restless, filled with many seeds of afflictions and karmic habits. We need to use various skillful methods of proper mental engagement to gradually calm our minds. No matter what circumstances arise, the mind habitually becomes stirred. Our minds are too prone to regarding phenomena as real and becoming agitated. That is why we remain ordinary beings. If you claim, "I don't have thoughts or mental engagement," that is impossible. At best, you are pressing down grass with a stone, which is already remarkable. Usually, your stone is too light to suppress your grass. Your grass is made of diamond, which pushes the stone away. Hence, it is called the diamond way. Actually, one can practice such abiding only after attaining the path of seeing. Before that, during the paths of accumulation and joining, this kind of abiding is impossible. Only after entering the path of seeing, realizing the nature of mind, or realizing no self in persons, can one practice in this way. After attaining the first fruition, one can abide in the selfless state in this manner. As soon as self-grasping arises, use the wisdom of non-self to sever it. The wisdom of non-self is powerful. The moment self-grasping arises, the wisdom immediately detects it. When self-grasping is absent, one can abide in the selfless state. Of course, this is not the ultimate state. In the state of an arhat, attachment to phenomena and deeper ignorance remain. However, it is a spiritual state that allows one to transcend the cycle of birth and death and abide in this realm. This is a non-conceptual meditation, but it is impossible to accomplish at the beginning. During the paths of accumulation and joining, we can only continuously apply correct mental engagement in that direction. Only after genuinely entering the path of seeing can one maintain the state. Before that, one should practice the paths of accumulation and joining, which involve applying correct mental modes. Through constant mental engagement, one can enter a selfless state in a similar way, but it is not yet true realization. This is the state on the path of joining, including the phases of warmth, summit, and acceptance. The path of accumulation primarily involves analytic meditation, and the path of joining focuses on correct mental engagement and habituation to right view. After entering the path of seeing, one can maintain the state. Before that, there is nothing to maintain. One is not yet eligible to speak of maintenance. This is the sequence of Dharma practice, which I have often explained before and is extremely important. Nyima Paldar Bum meditated and came back to Milarepa with questions about the song. She said that when she looked at the sky, she could meditate like the sky in a completely relaxed state. But clouds appeared in the sky, and she asked what she should do about the clouds. She said she could meditate on the mountains, but when doing so, she noticed plants and trees growing on them and asked what she should do about them. She said she could meditate like the sun and moon, but sometimes they were eclipsed, and she asked what she should do about the eclipse. She said she could meditate on a lake, but sometimes waves would appear, and she asked what should she do about the waves. The meaning of her questions, of course, was that she could meditate on the mind, but when she did, thoughts would arise, and she wondered how she could meditate on these thoughts. Milarepa replied that it was excellent that she could meditate like the sky, without any centre or limit. When clouds appear, one should not see them as different from the sky, for they are just a manifestation of the sky. If one can meditate like the mountain, that is good. The plants and trees growing on the mountain are no different from it. They are simply manifestations of the mountain. We should view the mountain and everything on it in this way. On the mountain there are trees, woods, and living beings, but they are all manifestations of the mountain. If one can meditate like the sun and moon, that is good. First, we should be stable and bright like the sun or the moon. An eclipse of the sun or moon is nothing other than their nature. If one can meditate like a great lake, waves are likely to appear, but they are just the movement of the lake, and therefore only a manifestation of it, because no wave is separate from the lake. Then Milarepa said that if one can meditate on the mind, thoughts will sometimes arise, but these thoughts are just movements within the mind. They are nothing other than the mind, a manifestation of it. When one does not understand the nature of thoughts, they are like waves on a lake, yet still part of the lake. When one recognizes that thoughts have no true essence, they naturally subside. So, one needs to understand that thoughts are not separate from the mind. In this way, Milarepa taught the union of Samatha and Vipassana. Resting without thoughts is Samatha meditation. Seeing that thoughts are merely manifestations of the mind is Vipassana meditation. This is the teaching of the Ganges Mahamudra, a very profound state. Internal thoughts and external phenomena are all manifestations of the mind. They arise from the true nature and return to it, just as waves emerge from a lake and return to it. Don't be afraid of thoughts. When you see thoughts, recognize that they are manifestations of our true nature. Don't cling to them or reject them. See them as part of the mind, a wondrous function of the mind. When you genuinely don't cling to thoughts, they become the wondrous function of our true nature. Use them freely. Don't be afraid of thoughts, which are the functioning of the mind. Its wondrous function is inexhaustible. The arising of thoughts is not necessarily bad. If your thoughts are free from self-grasping and all attachments, they are the wondrous function of wisdom. Usually, before thoughts arise, attachments emerge first, such as clinging to oneself, to money, or to the feeling of being looked down upon by others, which lead to entanglements. When there is attachment in the mind, thoughts are defiled by afflictions like greed, anger, ignorance, doubt, and arrogance. Without afflictions or attachments, the mind can give rise to wondrous functions, transformations, and manifestations. They are inexhaustible. You can use them as you wish. Don't be afraid to use them. They are limitless. However, to truly use them freely, we must first eliminate ignorance, attachment, and afflictions. Ordinary beings have countless attachments, so they cannot manifest many wondrous functions. Abide in a state to meditate and apply correct mental modes, without afflictions, distracting thoughts, or drowsiness. This is a very important meditation, the preliminary to the path of seeing. Without going through and mastering this practice of the path of joining, it is impossible to attain the path of seeing. Why is it rare to attain the path of seeing nowadays? Because very few people teach it. When no one has attained it, nobody knows how. Many people think that simply sitting in meditation or reciting mantras can lead to the path of seeing. How could that be possible? They haven't practiced the preliminaries. To realize the Buddha's teachings, countless masters have gone through the paths of accumulation and joining. Without passing through these stages, how can one attain the path of seeing? It is impossible unless one is an incarnation of a Bodhisattva on the bhumis. Those who have already attained the path of seeing don't need to practice the paths of accumulation and joining again. As soon as the teacher imparts instructions, they immediately enter the path of seeing, without going through the paths of accumulation and joining. However, without such experiences in past lives, this achievement is impossible. As you know, some great masters had thousands of disciples, yet only a few attained enlightenment. Having 2 or 3 enlightened disciples is already remarkable. Why? Because faith is insufficient. Of course, it also depends on the teacher's method. Some teachers are very skillful at teaching, such as Mazu Daoyi. He was from Sichuan and taught in Jiangxi, my hometown, and many of his disciples attained enlightenment. This depends on both the disciple's spiritual faculties and the teacher. It is not easy to attain enlightenment. Why did the Yuanman school later vanish? Because it was difficult to find qualified successors. Many masters could not find even one in their lifetime.